Here's what almost no one tells you. Long before your baby could cry, they were already communicating. Your baby is running a hierarchy of signals, a biological system that moves from quiet and specific to loud and desperate. And crying is not the beginning of that system. It is the end. Every signal in that hierarchy means something different, and there is one of them near the end of this list that almost every parent sees daily, misreads completely, and then spends weeks wondering why their baby seems impossible to settle. Stay with me until point 5, because understanding that one signal, really understanding it, changes how you read almost every difficult stretch of your baby's day. 1. The knock before the cry. Picture this. Your baby is lying quietly, not crying, not fussing. But their hands are moving, slowly, deliberately, toward their mouth. A fist makes contact. They start sucking on it, and they're watching you the whole time. Most parents reach for a pacifier or assume the baby is just doing baby things. This is actually the opening line of a conversation your baby has been trying to start. That movement is called a feeding readiness cue, and it's one of the earliest signals in a documented sequence that researchers call pre-cry hunger signaling. Your baby's body doesn't go from content to crying. It moves through a predictable arc, rooting, turning toward any touch on the cheek, lip smacking, hands drifting to the mouth. Each one is a step louder than the last. Crying comes only after all of those have been missed. This sequence has been documented across different cultures, different caregiving styles, and different feeding methods. It isn't learned behavior, it's biological. Your baby arrived with this program already running. The fascinating part is that this system evolved specifically because crying costs energy that a newborn cannot afford to waste. The quiet signals came first. Crying developed later as a backup, the alarm when the earlier messages went unanswered. So when you see those fists near the mouth, that's not restlessness. That's your baby asking before they have to shout. You still have time to answer quietly. 2. The look away that means come closer. You are feeding your baby. Eye contact, smiling, talking softly. And then, without warning, they look away. Head turns. Gaze drops. Maybe there's a small arch in their back. You lean in to recapture the moment. They look away again. It feels like rejection. It isn't. What you are watching is called gaze aversion, and it is one of the earliest and most important self-regulation tools your baby has. Your baby's nervous system is genuinely new. It is processing everything. Your face, your voice, the sensation of feeding, the light in the room, the sounds beyond the door, simultaneously, with no filter and no off switch. Your face, specifically, is one of the most stimulating inputs in your baby's entire world. Researchers have found that infant heart rate and cortisol levels, cortisol being your baby's stress hormone, both rise during sustained mutual gaze, even with a parent they adore. Eye contact is not neutral for a baby. It is intense. Gaze aversion is your baby managing that intensity. They are not withdrawing from you. They are regulating their own internal state well enough to come back to you in a moment. That brief look away is the pause between waves, not the end of the ocean. Don't chase the gaze. Don't lean in. Give that pause the space it needs. When they come back, and they will, that return is intentional. That's your baby choosing you again once they've found their footing. Both the looking away and the looking back are part of the same conversation. 3. The yawn that has nothing to do with sleep. Your baby yawns, not at the end of a long session, right in the middle of it. 10 minutes into tummy time or 15 minutes through a feed, you read it immediately as tiredness and start winding down towards sleep. Here's what's actually happening. Yawning in young babies is a stress signal before it is a sleep signal. When your baby's developing brain reaches its current capacity for sensory input, it initiates a small but measurable cortisol response. Yawning is one of the ways the nervous system helps regulate and discharge that response. It is a thermostat, not a timer. A baby yawning mid-activity is not asking to sleep. They are telling you that the input level has reached their ceiling. The stimulation, the movement, the visual complexity, the noise, the handling has hit a threshold. They need the environment to get quieter and simpler, not necessarily darker and still. The developmental reason this matters is significant. If you consistently override this signal, continuing the activity, increasing stimulation to re-engage the baby, you start pushing past that ceiling repeatedly. Over time, that makes it harder for the baby's nervous system to develop its own regulation rhythm. The signal exists precisely so you don't have to push that far. So when you see early yawning, that's not tiredness, that's the ceiling. Go quiet. Reduce the inputs. Let the nervous system reset. Sleep may follow, or it may not, but the signal was never about sleep. It was about load. 4. The silence that isn't peace. This is the part most parents miss, and it runs exactly backwards from what instinct tells you. When a crying baby goes quiet and still, genuinely limp, staring, silent, it looks like relief. It looks like the thing that worked. Parents feel their own nervous system relax in response because the crying has stopped, and quiet reads as calm. But that particular stillness is not always calm. There is a late-stage stress response in infants called a freeze state, sometimes described in the research literature as a shutdown response, that occurs when the nervous system becomes so overwhelmed that it stops broadcasting distress outwardly. The baby is not soothed, they are flooded. The system has not resolved. It has gone silent under pressure. This response is real, documented, and worth knowing about, not to frighten you, but because misreading it as success means the underlying cause never gets addressed. Here is how to tell the difference. A genuinely settled baby has soft, relaxed muscle tone. Their hands are open or loosely curled. They make occasional eye contact, and their breathing is slow and even. A baby in a freeze state has a fixed, glassy gaze. Their body feels slightly rigid or oddly heavy. The quiet has a held quality, not the loose quiet of sleep, but the tight quiet of something waiting. If you notice that kind of stillness and something in you registers it as different, trust that. You are reading your baby correctly. That instinct is worth following, and if it persists, worth a conversation with your pediatrician. That's not a baby who finally calmed down. That's a baby whose signal went underground. They still need you, more than before, not less. 5. The ancient reflex you've been misreading. Back to where we started. That baby turning their head side to side in the dark, fists near their mouth, not settling despite everything you tried. You were reading it as fussiness or overtiredness or some mystery you couldn't crack. That head turning is called rooting, and it is one of the oldest reflexes your baby carries. It predates human language by millions of years. Researchers have found versions of it in virtually every mammalian infant. It exists because in the early weeks of life, turning toward any contact near the face dramatically increases the chance of finding a feed. It is ancient, automatic, and extraordinarily sensitive. Here is what changes everything about understanding rooting. It fires on contact. Any touch near the cheek or mouth can trigger it. A hand, a piece of fabric, even the baby's own fist. Which means rooting and genuine hunger signaling look nearly identical from the outside, especially in the first 6 to 8 weeks when the reflex is at its strongest. Most parents learn one response to rooting, feed, and sometimes that is exactly right. But rooting can also be triggered by overstimulation, by a need for physical containment, or simply by the reflex firing without an underlying hunger drive at all. A baby who rooted 20 minutes after a complete feed and then settled without eating when held close and still was not hungry. They needed something different. The signal looked the same. The need was not. This is what the whole language of early signaling comes down to. Context before response. What happened in the 10 minutes before this signal appeared? When did they last feed, last sleep, last have a calm moment? The signal is the word. The sequence is the sentence. Don't just answer the signal. Read what came before it. When you learn to do that, to watch the arc instead of the moment, You stop chasing individual cues and start holding a conversation. One that has been going on since the first hour of your baby's life, patient and continuous, waiting for you to find your way in. You were always being spoken to. Now you know how to listen. So tonight, when your baby looks away mid-feed, or yawns 10 minutes into playtime, or goes very still after a long cry, you are not watching a baby who is confused or difficult or impossible to read. You are watching a nervous system that is working exactly as it was built to. Signaling before it has to cry, regulating before it floods, asking specifically and repeatedly before it shouts. Your baby has been speaking to you from the very beginning, in a language older than words, more patient than you might expect, and more precise than it looks from the outside. You were already watching something extraordinary. Now you know what you're looking at. If this gave you a new way to see your baby, share it with a parent who needed to hear it tonight. And if you want to keep understanding what your baby is already telling you, subscribe. There's so much more to hear.